Okay, hi there. Bear with me as I'm not completely comfortable being on video, but I'm going to give it my best shot. Hopefully, not looking at my notes too much. This literacy lab was definitely an eye opening experience for me. I have spent a lot of time doing reading groups as a paraprofessional, but there really isn't a whole lot of sort of training for it or being told exactly what to do. So this was really interesting for me to compare a lot of what I have done in the past to how things should be done. So I really enjoyed this lab altogether. As far as observations about learning behaviors with literacy, from the research that I have looked at, first graders, there's a list of things that first graders should be able to do when it comes to literacy and learning. Reading and retelling familiar stories, orally reading with reasonable fluency, using letter sound association and word parts to identify new words, sound out when they are spelling words, write about meaningful topics to them, and use a reasonable amount of punctuation and capitalization. So, those are all things that we should expect in first grade when we are working with students. What I observed with Claire, as far as all of those milestones go, is that she's on the right track for the majority of them. There is things that she can work on with them, but that's also to be expected. There are things to learn throughout the year. We're still early into the first grade year. Her strengths, she reads with fluency. She does very well with that, especially when it's a book on her level. She uses word parts when trying to figure out new words. She will split them into two different words. Usually it takes some coaching, but she's working on that. And when it comes to her spelling and her writing, she's definitely sounding out. I saw that she did a lot of that when we did the writer's workshop, when she was trying to spell out words, as she was spelling them out phonetically and exactly how they sounded. So that was a big strength of hers. And writing about meaningful topics. Her and I had a conversation about Christmas traditions before we started writing, and she was really able to connect to the writing and write about something that was meaningful for her. As far as the needs for Claire and what she needs to work on, she definitely wants to sound out every letter of an unfamiliar word. As we all know, that's not possible. There are so many different tricky words in reading, and we really want to get away from students sounding out every letter. I do know that a lot of parents are still teaching them that is how that they should be learning to read. So I find that students are bringing that behavior into the classroom, and this is something that Claire's definitely doing. We worked on a lot not to do that, but that's going to take some time. Um, Punctuation and capitalization. What I found really interesting when I looked at some of her previous writing before her and I sat down is that when it was a word wall word that she knew how to spell, the word was not capitalized. But for every word that she needed to spell out herself, she capitalized it. And I just thought that was an interesting pattern. I don't know the reasoning behind it, but it was something that stood out to me. So she is still working on learning to capitalize the beginning of sentences, including punctuation. Instead of having four separate sentences, she wants to write everything as just one really long sentence. So she's working on that as well. Changes in myself. Throughout this literacy lab, I definitely have learned more about strategies to work with students. Again, there wasn't a lot of training going into being a paraprofessional and doing the reading groups, and so I would use strategies that I was taught as a child, and I found that there are so many better strategies for kids out there, so I really enjoyed learning some of those. One thing that I really caught myself a lot at the beginning until learning more about it and seeing some of the YouTube videos we watched is I constantly want to say, good job, great job. You want to compliment the child, but I wasn't giving them specific feedback. So I worked on that a lot when I was working with Claire to specifically say, I like how you separated that word into chunks, or I like how you read that sentence very well. I tried to give her specifics instead of just the generic good job, well done type compliments. Claire's changes, the main thing I noticed is her fluency improved a little bit as we moved on. The big thing I noticed with Claire when we first started our reading together, our guided reading, is when she would get to an unfamiliar word, she would kind of look up to me as she was reading it. So say the word was doorbell and she wasn't sure what it was. I would literally see her look up to me with a smile, go, doorbell? And she would just kind of look to me to see whether I gave her that confirmation. I had gone to her teacher about it, and she said that she tends to use that little smile to kind of get the help that maybe we weren't going to give her. So that is something that she does quite a bit. But she showed more confidence at the end, and I didn't see her doing that much, so I was really happy to see that change in her. What did I learn about the literacy culture of my student, which was Claire? I spoke with Mom before we began, and she did say that they read a lot at home together. There isn't a lot of writing done at home, but a lot of the times Mom or Dad is reading to Claire instead of Claire reading to them. So what I did as far as feedback went is after our weekly lessons, I sent home a little note with Claire to Mom to let her know what we did that week, what I saw positively in Claire, and maybe something they could focus on at home to work with her. So that was the communication level that I had at home with Mom. Methods of instruction. We did the guided reading lessons, which Claire did the reading while I either was doing the running record or I was listening to her. And research shows that there are a lot of benefits with guided reading. Students are getting individualized instruction. Sorry, I'm really having a hard time speaking tonight. As well as giving them more confidence in their reading, learning to read for content, and practicing their skills for when they do get to unfamiliar words. They're able to do more one-on-one work with us, and we can remind them of skills, and that's really beneficial for them. We also did shared writing. This is when I worked with Claire and one little girl named Harper. I wrote the main sentence at the beginning, and then Claire and Harper shared the pen and did the writing. Shared writing is supposed to help, well, the research shows that this helps students as they watch a skilled writer write, and then as well as they can practice their technique. So we did one lesson on that. And then the Writer's Workshop. The great thing about Writer's Workshop is that the research has shown that it really helps students grow as writers. It lets them think a little bit more freely. Again, it gives them more confidence in their writing, and it also allows the opportunity for differentiated instruction, which is very helpful in the classroom today in an inclusive classroom environment. Our Writer's Workshop, we wrote about Christmas traditions. Again, I thought that was a great lesson for Claire. She was really able to write with meaning for that one, and I enjoyed that lesson. The assessment factored in when I did the running record, and that just gave me an idea of where Claire stood. There wasn't too much that I used for future lessons at that point, but it gave me the chance to practice the running record. So the main thing I took away from this class is that things don't always go as planned. I had a lesson that definitely didn't go as planned. I picked a text that was too difficult for Claire, and I kind of struggled through that lesson, but I also kind of learned how to think on my feet a little bit more, practice when to step in, and help her when to kind of let her try to figure it out for her own. But my main takeaway from that lesson is we can't plan for everything, and we need to be ready, and I feel like maybe next time I'll be a little bit more prepared. So I thought this was a great course. I took away a lot from it, and I'm excited to use some of the strategies that I'm taking away in my future classroom.